Good morning.
Very good. We got that's good. Okay, let's make a start, shall we? Good morning, everybody. My name is Andy Fairburn from the Nordic Tourism Collective, and together with my colleague Paul Wagner, we'd like to welcome you here to this webinar, this very special webinar this morning. Thanks for joining us today. This is the second of our the third of our recovery webinars. We did our first one on airlines, we did our second one on destinations, and today we're very pleased to have a very distinguished panel of guests with us looking from a buyer's perspective. Thanks to everyone joining us today, and thanks also to ETOA, who are sharing this platform with us, and thanks to Sophie, who is hidden away behind the lines, behind the scenes, doing all the techie stuff. So thank you to Sophie. We're going to look at the buyers, see what they think, see how they'll see in recovery, and we are going to start with a presentation, but we'll talk about that in a moment or so. Just a couple of things. Everyone's on mute automatically, which makes it easier. But if anyone has any questions, there is a box on the right-hand side of the webinar where you can enter a question if you wish, and we'll try to get through those questions as we proceed through the webinar. So Paul, good morning, and who have we got with us today?
Good morning, and thanks once again for everybody for joining us this morning. It's been a long 2 years. We've enjoyed, since we enjoyed some good numbers of numbers to the Nordic, to a good number of travelers into the Nordic and Baltic region. And today we're now looking at how 2022 is going to shape up. And this is from a buyer's perspective in the key markets. And as Andy mentioned, we're joined by a really fabulous panel today. First, I'd like to introduce you to Amber Ewell, who's Head of Operations and River Cruising at Taug Tours. Good morning, Amber. I'd also like to introduce you to Clive Stacey, the founder and CEO of Discover the World. He will be coming on camera very shortly, so probably won't wave now. Also like to introduce you to Xavi Galvez, Director of Arctic Yeti in Spain. Good morning, Xavi.
Good morning.
And to Christiana Heine-Strauch, who's the Director of Service Ryzen. Good morning, Christiana. Hi there. So a great panel, and this panel is that not only are they from different markets, but they're in different sectors of the industry. So they have different type of programs into the Nordic and Baltic region, and we'll be coming on to that a little bit later when they introduce themselves. But first, I'd like to set the scene for 2022, to look at the trends, to look at the data, and we're absolutely delighted today to have our close partners, Forward Keys, joining us today to present some really interesting market intelligence and data of the region, and delighted to introduce you to Juan Gomez of Forward Keys, Head of Market Intelligence. Good morning, Juan.
Very good morning, Paul. How are you doing?
Over to you. Good.
Shall I start presenting?
Yeah, you go for it, Juan.
Okay. If you confirm if you can see the slides now?
Yes, that's all good.
Okay, fantastic. Then I start then. Well, very good morning to everyone joining us today. I'd like to start by thanking the Nordic Tourism Collective and, of course, ETOA for giving me this opportunity to share Forward Keys insights at this very critical time. At Forward Keys, we understand that with the latest developments of the pandemic, there are a lot of uncertainties regarding the status of travel. And of course, how is the Nordic and Baltic regions doing in terms of recovery? How is the Omicron variant affecting booking behaviors? Which destinations are best positioned to attract winter holiday makers? And which markets are most reactivated this far? All of these, of course, are good questions, and I've prepared a few slides to answer them. I'll keep it short, though, as I'm aware that we have a lot to cover today. Before I dig into the data, just a few words about who we are here at Forward Keys. We are a travel data analytics company based in Valencia, Spain, specialized in air travel. We have the most extensive data sets on commercial flights worldwide, so that we can know in near real time who will be flying where and when. We're also able to track air capacity scheduled by the airlines and the changes that these make to it. So in a nutshell, we use big data to predict future travel. I would like to start this presentation with a short review of 2021 so that we all have a common understanding of where we are coming from. At minus 59% international arrivals compared with 2019, the Americas perform significantly better than the rest of the world at an average of minus 74%. And within the Americas, I would like to highlight the Caribbean and Central America that perform as the real powerhouses for the recovery of the region. Both subregions reached about 2/3 of pre-COVID levels. Travel from the US has played a key role in the recovery process, but there is still a huge potential for growth as the US outbound travel to the rest of the continent was only about half of what it usually used to be pre-COVID times. Fewer entry restrictions since 2020, not only 2021, and a diverse offer in open space, sun and sea experiences have pushed this region to be on top. Europe, on the other hand, only managed to recover on 1/3 of its pre-pandemic international arrival levels, mostly powered by Southern European destinations. Cities, as you of course know, in the old continent have had a hard time to bounce back, as group and intercontinental travel, just to name a few sectors, are still lagging behind. And travelers, of course, do not seek for crowded museums, streets, or shopping malls. And this, of course, is being shown in the data. More on the contrary. Strict travel restrictions during the first half of the year, a summer season in which in many ways the same mistakes of the summer 2020 were made, in particular with last-minute changes in restrictions, and a slowdown at the very end of the year left a rather disappointing final figure for the full year to our continent. Of course, Asia remains pretty much closed. Zooming in the top most resilient European destinations in 2021, both countries and cities, we see how sun and sea Southern European destinations, as I was mentioning, outperformed the Central and Northern European counterparts. Here, again, the early announcement of reopening to vaccinate passengers of countries, for example, as Greece, played a big role. And on a positive note, we saw how islands such as Ibiza or Crete managed to reach close to pre-pandemic international arrival figures, as you can see there. It's not only down to travelers' willingness to hop on a plane, communication is key. Travelers need to feel secure all along, before departure, during the holidays, and also when they're back home. And stability and good communication is key. Looking at the Nordic and Baltics, the picture was rather bleak, not as positive as to those top performers for the rest of Europe, with widespread declines across the board. Iceland was first in class with a very clear reopening policy, which prompted a strong interest from US travelers. But in any case, in all fairness, it doesn't make much sense to look only at yearly figures in this particular case. The first half of the year was pretty much dead. And as most of you joining us today work with destinations in this region, you won't be surprised to see the uplifting results in Q4. Q4 international arrival figures showed an extraordinary improvement compared to the rest of the year, boosted by a renewed confidence in international travel once pretty much everyone had been vaccinated, loosened travel restrictions, and the beginning of the winter, which of course is a hot time to travel to this part of the world. The Nordic and Baltic destinations have indeed much of what travelers have sought during the pandemic this far: nature, open air activities, unspoiled places, and off the beaten track experiences. Once conditions are right, as I say, travelers do come back. Unfortunately, as you all know, the road to recovery isn't as easy as that. And we are currently experiencing the much anticipated bumps along the road. The latest in the form of an early Christmas present that we all got in the past November. And indeed, I am referring to the O word. The Omicron variant sequenced in November triggered some of the tightest travel restrictions since the beginning of the year, meaning a hard stop in the travel recovery. In this graph, you can see how tickets issued for any future travel from the USA to Iceland, Sweden, and the UK have behaved from July to date. In the 2 weeks prior to the discovery of this new variant, weekly tickets confirmed for future travel from the US to Iceland were posting growth from the same moment in 2019. Also to Sweden, while tickets to the UK were slowly recovering ground. Ticketing performance evidently got worse after the discovery of Omicron. However, as we can see, there is a glimmer of optimism as ticketing to Iceland from the US is recovering from this Omicron-induced slump and is already close to pre-pandemic levels once more. To better understand how this new variant and the imposed restrictions in both source markets like the UK and destinations is affecting the recovery, here's the weekly split between new bookings being made, modifications and cancellation of existing bookings for traveling out from the UK to the Nordics and Baltics. From the week before the discovery of Omicron to the week when it was discovered, there was a 9% percentage point contraction in bookings. This alarming trend did not cease in the following week with a further 8% contraction due to the countries imposing, of course, additional restrictions. And in the week commencing 6th of December, the booking behavior stabilized as the shock wore off. In the final week of December, and here are the good news, there were signs of improvement and there was an increase of 5 percentage points on the previous week in initial bookings and in tandem, of course, with a 5% decline in cancellations. This is of the share of the total movements of each week. The discovery of this new variant and, of course, the subsequent surge in cases all over Europe ahead of Christmas resulted in a 4% reduction in intra-European seat capacity by airlines. You can see in this graph the capacity over the height of Christmas was barely untouched, and that the highest reduction in seats from the planned capacity back in November what is expected around the half of January. Looking at the Nordic and Baltics air seat capacity, where we have seen some really tight restrictions, for example, with Finland requesting testing in addition to vaccine certificates, the reduction so far has been of 8%. But not all is negative. Looking into 2022, the region has huge potential. Looking at the levels of confirmed tickets this far, in comparison to what had been booked for traveling during the first quarter of the year at the same moment pre-pandemic, we can establish that the recovery will continue, albeit at a modest pace. And I think it's good that we remain cautious here. According to ForwardKey's latest booking data, Iceland will once more be the best performing destinations. Here's just Q1 results, in part due to arrivals from the USA, which are only about -25, -24% from the same moment 2 years ago. Cities in Arctic latitudes, as you can see there, as Rovaniemi or Kiruna, are also close to pre-pandemic levels. If you allow me, Lapland is getting hot. It is also very encouraging to see some capital cities entering in the top 10 most resilient destination cities list, with values of around half of pre-pandemic levels, which will, of course, place them ahead of the big capitals such as Paris, London, or Berlin. To finish with this brief review, I've looked into 4 key source markets into the region, which I think bodes well to what the other panelists work or their areas, and their top 3 most resilient destinations for this Q1 2022. While the USA and the UK still have a long way to go until reaching 2019 levels, as you can see, Germany and Spain, helped by enhanced capacity to the Nordic and Baltics, which in many cases didn't exist pre-pandemic, some routes, are in many cases, as you see there, expected to see growth from pre-pandemic levels, should the restrictions, of course, continue stable and or are relaxed after this new wave of corona. Indeed, as I was saying, at ForwardKeys, we are optimistic, even if cautious, about 2022. We will probably not reach pre-pandemic levels, but I'd like to conclude with some positive trends we note at the beginning of this new year. First of all, domestic and intra-regional travel, and here Europe is key, remains strong and will continue being the lifeboat for many destinations. Secondly, international travel keeps improving, intercontinental, sorry, and we have seen that the US reactivation can be key for many destinations, not only within close reach, such as the Caribbean, but also places like Iceland, and there's no reason why this couldn't be extended to the rest of Europe. Europe remains largely open for business despite the reaction to Omicron by some destinations. 4, there's an emergence of new markets, and as such, I would like to recommend everyone to think outside the box. Not many would expect a Spaniard like myself change the amazing 24 degrees that we were enjoying in New Year's Eve week here in Valencia or the freezing temperatures of the Baltics, but indeed I did travel to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania for a week to bid farewell to 2021 and welcome 2022, and I loved it. So here is to new markets. And finally, there's a strong pent-up demand, and destinations and key players must be ready to make the most of it when it's released. I am sure the presentation will be made available if it hasn't been already been done so. I think through some link you can download it to all attendees, but please do not hesitate to reach out via LinkedIn. It will be a pleasure to answer all your doubts about your destination of market or market of interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan. That was really interesting and some fantastic data there to share with us of what we've been going through and what we are going through, and hopefully what we will be going through for 2022. And I want to continue this optimistic theme, because despite the fact we're in the middle of this Omicron variant, there is still been quite considerable improvement in traffic into our Nordic and Lappish destinations in Northern Europe. So this must bode well for when things start to come down in terms of restrictions. The confidence comes up and bookings will come back extremely quickly. I'm sure we'll hear that from our panelists shortly. So I'd like to thank you once again, Juan, and go to our panelists now and open the room up to everybody. And first of all, I'd like to ask our panelists to maybe just say a little bit about the type of business they have to the region and give us their assessment of how demand is looking for 2022 from your particular market and obviously from your company perspective as well. And if I could start with you, Amber.
Sure. First, Paul and Andy and Sophie, I'd like to just say thank you for involving me in this conference. I've already learned so much, and I'm really excited to learn more as the conversation continues. So for TAUC, just a little background. TAUC is a worldwide tour operator with an American market. I'd say 95 to 99% American, especially now in the last 2 years. Our clientele are mostly affluent, well-traveled, well-educated professionals, many retired, but we're having more and more in the kind of 40s and 50s range. In the Nordic market, we operate 5 tour series. We have 3 small ship tour series with our partners Ponant. This is a Scandinavia program, and a Russia and the Baltics program, and an Iceland program. And then we also operate 2 coach land tours, another Scandinavia 12-night program and a Russia and the Baltics 13-night program. And the small ship programs, we only are able to run a few departures every year. It's a smaller volume, although the demand is tremendous. And while our land programs, our coach tour programs, are really high volume programs for us. So I would say in general, I mean, for all of our tours, we operate on all 7 continents, and I would say that demand for 2022 is off the charts. I mean, it's pent up. It's all the people who didn't travel in 2020 and 2021. People are ready to go. At the same time, there is uncertainty, both because we really don't know what's going to happen in terms of the borders and in terms of entry restrictions. But I think guests there's always this little worry in the back of their mind. What's going to happen? What happens if I get sick on tour? What if I'm stuck in the country? These types of questions linger. But I think as time goes forward, the amount of resilience guests have toward this fear increases. So they want to travel so badly. They're willing to jump over more and more hoops. They're willing to take more and more risks in order to get to the destinations they want to go to. So I can say confidently, we have record bookings for almost all of our product lines for 2022, including our Nordic tours, which we did not operate any in 2021. So we were not able to operate any of our Nordic region tours in last year. So really a lot of demand. In fact, we wish we could add more departures in 22, but we're limited by ship and hotel inventory. So if there's any new hotels coming up in any of these capitals, if you have any inside tips, please let us know, because this is our biggest limiting factor, honestly. And the other thing I just wanted to toss out there was, not only I think is there more demand, or a great amount of demand, but I think also as a tour operator, we've learned a lot from last year, and our tolerance, or our ability to operate in kind of less than ideal COVID conditions has improved. So we, I think, are less likely to cancel tours in 2022 because there are increased restrictions, or because you have to take a test between borders. We've learned how to deal with that, and we've learned that guests can still have a very good experience, and an amazing experience within these restrictions. So that gives me a lot of confidence that we will operate and that people will be willing to travel with us.
That's great, Amber, and that adaptability is very important, and I'm sure all of our panelists today will probably echo the same thoughts about how we've had to learn to be so much more flexible and so much more streetwise than we have been in the past. Thank you. That's a brilliant insight into the US market. Thanks, Amber. Clive, over to you from a UK perspective. How are things looking for you for 2022? Just on mute, Clive.
Okay, sorry about that. Is that better?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, great. Hi, Paul. Thanks for asking me to be involved today. The UK market is quite confused at the moment, as I am. We from day to day, we're getting bookings in varying degrees. I think the interesting thing is that there is definitely a demand, but people are still a little bit bruised by suddenly being told that there's new variants, there's new protocol. People are still a little bit concerned about being trapped somewhere with governments around the world changing their minds. So that will take a little bit of time. British market's pretty resilient, and I think probably a week or two will be something like back to where we were in December, which was trending on 2019 levels. And that had happened for something like about 2 months. We lost quite a lot of bookings around about December, early January, and part of February as well. But we're now getting people coming back, booking for sort of more longer term now, longer to mid-term, whereas before it was a little bit like last-minute stuff. So there does seem to be some sensibility coming back into the market. I don't know whether this is different to other parts of the world, but I think in the UK we're trying to live with the virus, perhaps more than in other places. So that's helping, but it's also begging the question, so if I do go to another country, what's the protocol? How will they treat me? What will happen when I try to come home? And what will happen with in the eventuality that I got COVID? But I'm really positive for 22, and I think the main reason is that there are indications that we can live with the virus, and that will be the norm coming up in the future.
Thanks, Clive. Thanks. That's an excellent insight as well. And I think that the luck that we've had that Omicron itself is a milder variant means that most countries now are deciding, okay, we'll put restrictions while it's really rife at the moment, and everybody's catching. But once the downward turn is very much there in most countries, restrictions will lift pretty quickly, and we've seen that in a few countries in Europe already, where we're seeing restrictions open, and suddenly that transfers into new bookings of holidays. So the demand is there. We just need that sort of environment, that clean environment, so people have the confidence to book. So thank you very much, Clive. Again, like Amber in the US, UK, relatively positive. We're in the middle of January. We're not even in the middle of January yet. We're in early January, and still we can feel that we may be looking at a very different year in 2022 that we've had for the last couple of years. Okay, let's move to Spain now to Xavi. Good morning, Xavi. How's it looking your end in Spain?
Good morning and hello to everyone. I will just first introduce a little bit about us, just to know what we're coming from. We are a small company specialized in Spanish travelers, Spanish-speaking travelers to the Nordic countries, and we mostly do adventure travel, very small groups and individuals also. So this is important because Spaniards are very late bookers normally, And we can see this year for the first time in the last couple of years that people are starting to make inquiries much earlier than we were used to, even earlier than before 2019. And how does that convert into bookings? It's quite similar to what Clive was saying in the British market. We will see that in a couple of weeks probably, but it's looking good just for the amount of inquiries that we are getting and for the right questions. The kind of questions that travelers are making to us is like, in the last couple of years, everyone has been quite frightened to travel because they didn't know what will happen, if it will be cancelled or not. But nowadays, at least from the Spanish market, we are used to it. We know that the uncertainty it's normal now, so we just need to do the right questions, and that's not going to stop us to travel. And we can see that. I don't think that we will get to pre-coronavirus levels yet this year, but it looks that we are going to get close to it, at least to destinations like Iceland and Norway. For us, it looks like that is growing quite fast.
Super, thank you very much. And that what you mentioned, Xavi, about inquiries and client engagement is really encouraging. There isn't the confidence yet to say, okay, I'm going to just book anything, just let me there. We're certainly not there yet, but just that interaction with clients and the inquiries and the questions is really, I guess, where we are now, early January. So thanks very much for that. Again, looking relatively positive for 2022. And finally, Christiana, from the DACH German-speaking markets, how's it looking your side?
Good morning to everyone, and thank you to ETOA that I have the possibility to join this webcast. Service Ryzen is a wholesaler who is dealing in group business, B2B. That means we are selling to tour operators and travel agencies and groups all over. Our main clients are coming from the German-speaking market. That means Germany, Austria, Switzerland. We are dealing more than nearly 50 years now to all these in the European countries, and Scandinavia and Baltic is a really strong market for us. All over, we see that the bookings and the forecast for 2022 is nearly like 2019. But what we cannot say for the moment is how big the groups will be, because in our forecast and what we plan, that the groups will be smaller than the years before. That means if you see the average, the turnover, it will be at least lower than 2019. But from workload and even for hotels, it will be the same work we will have and even the same challenges, because the bottleneck is for Scandinavia will be ferries, hotels, guides, and so on. And this will be the big challenge for this season. And really the problem, what we see, is also the restrictions, border openings, and we are really depending on travel opportunities. And the big problem we see for the moment, because we also have really groups traveling to Lapland this winter now, and round trips, and it's really a problem because travelers, groups have to make up to 6 lateral flow tests in between the travel. And this is really challenging to find possibilities, test centers, how to make these tests, and even to make it easy to deal these groups. As members said, yes, we are used to it. With 1 or 2 tests, it's okay. Or if we are based on a ship or on a river cruise or in a coach, normally we can deal it, we can do it there in this area. But we need a possibility that these tests will be accepted all over the borders. We found now someone who is making online tests, as you have it in UK with national pathology, which exists, but not every country is accepting these online tests. And this will be the challenge what we have to solve for the summer and for the season 2022. If we will find solutions for this, then 2022 can be a real good season from the German-speaking market.
Thank you, Christiana. Yeah, you've highlighted the challenges, which are very much, you know, the various different regulations and testing procedures in different countries. And when you cross borders, which many of our visitors that travel to the Nordic and Baltic, they do cross borders very regularly, 3, 4, 5 times, sometimes on a tour. This needs to be improved dramatically. I mean, there won't be the possibility to keep operating tours, doing 6 tests during a program. That would be crazy. I'm sure not all tests would be immediately scrubbed when the numbers come down and everything, but you would like to think with a certificate of vaccinations and maybe a pre or post test, we should be at a situation where people will not mind or worry about what they need to do when they start traveling again. So hopefully we'll be in a situation by early spring or March, April, where we should be in a very different world than we are now. But thanks for highlighting those challenges as well. Just another quick question to our panelists. Just a feeling, is the Nordic and Baltic, these destinations, as Juan sort of highlighted, is there a sort of appreciable increase in destinations like the Nordics, where we have, of course, less busy cities, more remote destinations, a little bit more space and tranquility? Do you notice any slight increase in popularity of these destinations? Let's start with you, Javi. How are you feeling? You specialize in the Lapland and adventure programs. Is there a real additional increase in this kind of traveler?
Yeah, definitely. And it has been actually very nice to see Juan's presentation, because it highlights exactly what we are experiencing. We can see that it's growing quite a lot. We have to take into account that Spain has been hit very strong during this COVID time, and that had made us look at what other countries have done during this time, if they have done it better or worse than that. And we like to see countries that we think that have done it better than us. No? So the Nordics are seen from a Spanish general population perspective like a model of a group of countries that have had a good behavior and good results during these hard times. So this is of course a good marketing fact that makes the interest in the area grow, and we can definitely see that. But also that during this lockdown time in Spain, of course, people is willing to travel more. They desire that they were traveling, they were missing traveling. And during this time, people have been gathering information or inspiration or where to travel next. And like talking to family or friends or just checking influencers in social media. And luckily for us, the Nordics, it's in the bucket list of many Spaniards. And the bucket list is something that we always postpone for later. This is my dreaming trip that I will do in a few years. But I think this COVID time has boosted this bucket list perspective, and people is looking into traveling as soon as possible to the places that they feel inspired to travel. We are noticing that the bucket list trip is coming sooner, at least in the Spanish market. So we are definitely seeing much more interest in the Nordic countries that we actually were seeing before COVID.
That's fascinating, Javi. Thank you for that. Really, really fascinating. Christiana, you obviously operate tours to the whole of Europe. How is the Nordics faring up? Is it as strong as other destinations, or stronger because of the attractiveness of the destination?
The Nordics are really strong, and I can say it's on the level of 2019, which was the best year. And that gives me really hope for 2022, because Nordics has everything people in the German-speaking market demand. It has space. You can isolate yourself if you want. You have green, you have nature, you can make activities, you can be outdoor, and that gives you the possibility, the feeling that you are that you can feel healthy, and that's also very important. And there's also the variety of different things, culture, food traditions, which people want to experience. And I can follow Ravi when Scandinavia and even the Baltics are on the bucket list. People want to go there. Round trips, for example, to the North Cape, and what I see is a big restart. We had a downcrease years before, and for the moment, everyone want to make these trips, want to go around, because these are tours which people don't want to make by their own. They need an operator with whom they can make these tours, and they want to do it, they want to see it, because it's a dream to stay at the end of the world of Europe at the North Cape, or to be in the Lofoten area, to see how the weather is changing there from one minute to another, from dark to sun, and it's really amazing. Or to go on a fishing trip or whatever. You can do so different things. What is important and what we see is that the groups won't be, for the activities won't be smaller. That means not everyone is making a classic city trip with the whole coach. There will be maybe 10, 15 who makes a classical trip, because for them it's the first time to go to Oslo or Stockholm, and the other ones are going by bike or making a food excursion through Oslo with specialties, or going on a culture trip, or visiting a museum, or whatever. And this will be really interesting for the future, to individualize the programs and to make it more interesting. And that gives also people the choice to individualize their own trip in a group, and that's really quite nice. And the Scandinavian area gives us the possibility to do this.
That's also very interesting, and I think it goes back to Xavi's point, Christiana, that we've all been dreaming. We've been sitting down mostly indoors for 2 years, dreaming, looking at the places that we'd like to be at. And as you both made very clear, you know, the attractiveness of a destinations like the Nordics and Baltics is very much up there. And let's hope we can capitalize on this. Clive, how about obviously Nordics is very big for you generally, but do you have a feeling yourself that the popularity of the destination could increase?
Yeah, well, I guess we're hoping for a big increase across all our destinations. We operate in many parts of the world, and so in that sense, I guess the Nordics, a lot of which, particularly Iceland's been open throughout the pandemic, or a lot of the time. Might be actually a little bit less popular than maybe some new destinations that have been off limits during this period. But having said that, those that have not travelled at all during the pandemic are a little bit resistant, a little bit scared about travelling abroad, might be looking at closer destinations. So, and also outside of cities. So the Nordics, in that sense, might be more popular. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's the overall impression of the Nordics pre-pandemic as being a trending destination is there, perhaps even more so. So I think proportionately, there will be a bigger increase overall during the period of 22-23.
Yeah, thanks, Clive. And that trending destination is key. And Amber, how's it looking from the US if you compare your European tours? Is the Nordics? You mentioned that you could sell more to purchase. So I guess it's fairly positive. But basically, your basic feeling about the attractiveness of the Nordics.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I echo what Xavi, Clive, and Christiana had said largely. I think I don't know that I see as much of an increase in the Nordics as opposed to other destinations within Europe. However, there are two things probably going for the Nordics. One is that they are perceived as very safe. So kind of what Xavi said, that they have a good healthcare system. They did a good job with COVID. So people feel comfortable traveling there. And then also this bucket list idea. A lot of our guests travel to this area because of their heritage, their own family history. And I think this sense of needing to, check that off their list and get to that destination that they've always wanted to see is very important in these years. So I think I don't know that that we see in our guests so much of a drive toward remote destinations or less populated destinations, but I do think that the general trending that we are seeing toward the Nordics is increasing, and I think that people just want to get there. It's on their list. And I just wanted to correct myself before when I said that we didn't operate anything last year. We did operate Iceland. I'm sorry, it's an island, and I was kind of thinking of it in isolation. So that was one of our first tours we opened up in Europe. So, but I see that also that demand staying the same, and I think that it's only going to increase in this area.
Sure. No, thank you. And yeah, I think we're in a situation that we've had this discussion and we've mentioned about the attractiveness without mentioning the sustainability word, which we'll come to very shortly in the next question. But maybe the sustainability angle will open a lot more doors moving forward for the Nordics as well. But just hearing your general impression about post-COVID and the Nordic attractiveness was really interesting. Andy, over to you for the next question.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. I think it's what I find interesting about this is that we've actually got on the call today, we've got a huge number of DMOs and a huge number of destinations and hotels who are listening to everybody about the markets they want to learn about the buyers. But I mean, let's flip the tables a little bit. So Christina, for example, you're saying there's problems with testing, and Clive was saying that there's confusion. To what extent would you say, because obviously the customers want communication, they want clear communication, they look to you to give them guidance, they look to you, Clive, to give them comfort and security, knowing that they're going to be secure. How can the destinations and how can the people you work with help you to make your life easier? What can they do to actually sort of improve the flow of communication? How can they help provide the sort of types of products that you'd be looking for in the future if you're looking at different types of different products moving forwards? What advice would you give to the destinations? What would you advise give to the Nordics to help make your job better, to make your job easier, to be able to give them more business in the longer term? So Christina, could I start with you with that?
Yes, sure. What we need are uniform, reliable entry conditions that do not change daily. This is the most important thing, what we need. Then we need information on entry conditions. For us, for your other countries in other languages, German language translations for entry forms or assistance samples of completed forms, that we have a kind of page what we can use and can send to the client. It's like this, how do we have to fill it out? What we also need, as we are dealing only with groups, registration procedures for closed groups. Not that we have to do it for only one after another and even start again, that we can say, okay, this is a closed group. We can add additional persons, as we have in Italy with a registration form where you can add family and other persons on. What we also need is what I said before, possibility for online testings if we need them in the summer. Hopefully we won't need any. What we also need, or what we have to take care of about, is that we have enough space in restaurants, at check-ins, in excursion programs, that the hotels find solutions. For example, if a group is coming with a coach, that they don't say everyone has to come all together into the hotel. They will deliver the keys into the coach, or will deliver the keys to the coach. The coach driver will go out, takes the keys, and will deliver it. So that means to avoid groups and crowd in the hotels. Even hygiene standards we have to take care about. Often we prefer serve menus because buffet is a kind of can be a problem with hygienic standards. If hotels are serving buffets, it could be also an idea that a staff behind the buffet is serving the clients, that they are coming with their plates and saying, okay, they give them, because it's also more hygienic than instead of taking everything by themselves. And for sure, but this is what we needed even before COVID, is good quality price ratio. And what we have to take care about is that people are getting a kind of wow effect, positive surprise about the country. That means that they get unexpected surprises, positive surprises. If someone is saying, oh, hello, how are you? Do you want to make a walk? There is a nice walking trip behind the hotel. Go 5 steps up, for example, at the Geiranger Fjord. Then you have a kind of glass bottom to see down. Things what you don't have programmed, but that you can give and say to people, do this and this, do it by your own. You have a special experience by your own. And then they come back with a wow effect.
I see that, and I think there's an issue there in terms of the staffing levels of some of these places, that they don't have the resources to be able to do that, unfortunately. But that's a whole other conversation. Let's not go there. I think, Clive, I mean, is that a fair point? I mean, without getting into specifics, I mean, you talk about communication, the communication and the expectation of you as a tour operator to provide all the information that the clients need must be a tremendous burden.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest burden that we have to deal with in the operational side. I mean, destinations need to ease border controls, both on the border and in the destination, the restrictions to encourage more demand. I think that more governments are coming to realize this. Our clients are looking for flexible cancellation terms and financial protection, assistance in deciphering, testing, documentation requirements, support if testing positive in resort, and really throughout the whole journey process. This is actually where a good tour operator, specialist tour operator, really earns their keep. And we welcome this because I think in the future, people will understand the benefits of booking through a tour operator, which is something that has been changing, particularly over the last 5 to 10 years, where people are much more likely to self-package. Well, this is an instance where booking through a tour operator gives you all the benefits and usually none of the disadvantages. So we're looking at this in the long run, benefiting our business and better benefiting clients and the holiday market in general.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I mean, I traveled at Christmas and I did on my own, and organising all the testing, everything was a complete and utter nightmare. And had I been able to ring you up and say, Clive, do that all for me, that would have been a tremendous help. So maybe next time I'll do that. Amber, you were nodding your head quite vigorously when Christina was talking about stuff. Without getting into the political side of things, because obviously border restrictions is something which is beyond the scope of many of the people watching today, but within the individual sort of destinations, how can they help you in what you do? I mean, restrictions being one thing, that's a political thing, but within the destinations, is there anything that they can do to help in terms of making your life easier?
I think clarity of information, helping us sift through the noise and the various government websites and just get to the core of, what do our people need to do to come and pass through, helping us just stay on top of the changes. I think that this is half the battle, and then we in turn can update our guests. I think testing is unfortunately going to stay a reality, I think, and making that as easy as possible for the people moving through your properties or taking your tours, or there can't be enough testing opportunities. I think that obviously health and safety are hugely important. Hygiene standards, all the normal protocols that we're used to at this point. I do think, you have to reach a certain level, but those have kind of taken a backseat to just the general complication of travel and restrictions. So I think that's where we could use the help. Otherwise, I completely echo the list that Christiana gave, and I completely agree that we need some consistency and clarity.
So thank you, Amber. Javi, I mean, I think Spanish people don't want anything in particular, do they? I mean, they're no different to everybody else. I mean, everything, it's the same story, I guess. So I'm going to ask you a different question. I'm going to ask you about sustainability. I mean, sustainability is something which we've been banging on around for about the last year or so, and it's become something which has become more and more of a subject which has taken over everybody's lives, and certainly the Nordic destination is in the forefront of that. In terms of the drive to sustainability, in terms of the commitment to that, and they're really leading the world in terms of sustainability as an issue, both in the everywhere life and in tourism as well. Is that something which is important moving forward, Javi, or is that something which is going to take a back step? People just want to travel, or is sustainability really something which people are going to engage with for the rest of 2022?
Yeah, I actually think it's a good question, because sustainability has been in the forefront of all of us in the last 10 years, like you say, at least, and we can see that also in the Spanish market. Spaniards are quite price sensitive in general, and the Nordics is still a very expensive destination for the average population. That means that the price is still, I would say, more important than sustainability for the Spanish market as a general issue, but it's growing. It's growing quite a lot. We can see it starting like 10 years ago. It's a very important concern in the last, let's say, 5 years. And of course, this COVID time has shown us that we have to move with a more eco-conscious mindset, like it has amplified people's awareness about their impact on the environment and in local communities. So I would say that we can see that people is more interested in traveling in a sustainable manner more than before COVID. It's still a little bit low in Spain. I will guess that for us, for our company, just around 15% of our travelers will show some concern about sustainability when they are booking. At the moment of booking, just only 15% will ask about it. And in reality, only probably 2% will make this like the most important issue for the decision-making process. But it's true that once in the field, in a guided tour with the Spanish clients, at least 60% of the travelers, they are looking into it, and they are interested in knowing where their money is going and how their money is going to help local communities to go through. We all know that everyone has been through difficult times in COVID, so people want to help local communities to develop, and they want to know where their money is being invested. Much more than before.
I think the important point is that sustainability is much more about airline emissions. It's about there's a whole heap of stuff. It's about local communities. It's about equality. It's about everything, and it means lots of different things to different people. So it might mean, is that something, Amber, in the States, is sustainability an issue, or is that something which is you've seen or not?
Yeah, so in 2019, this was actually maybe our top operational goal as a company. We launched an Our Planet campaign, and we made a lot of changes, positive changes on our tours, reducing plastic and things like this. I think that with COVID, it definitely took a step backwards. I think people's priorities shifted very quickly. As you know, the US tends to be a little bit divided when it comes to environmental issues. Not all find it as high a priority as others. But I think that there are a significant number of our guests for whom this is a real concern, and I think I feel it coming back for 22. that this is going to start raising its head again, which is great. And we need to start paying more attention to it. So I would say, I don't think it's on the minds of our guests at all. I would agree with Javi, less than 2% probably are even considering it when booking, but I do see this coming back.
Cool. I think the interesting thing is that from my perspective anyway, sustainability doesn't necessarily mean more expensive. It can actually mean cheaper. And that's something which is, Juan, I know you're still there, you're still with us. I'm going to just throw a quick question back at you. Is the sustainability something which has come up in your research? Is there any insight you can give us there at all?
Yeah, well, I think I have to concur with my colleague Javi, also joining from Spain. I think it really depends on the market. I think everyone in the industry, and of course consumers as well, are of course touched and interested in sustainability, especially airlines, which is the sector that I control. And I think the Baltics and the Nordics are in a very good position to offer a more sustainable experience than those of, for example, other parts of Europe or the world. We can talk about, for example, fleets, aircraft fleets. If we talk about the Baltic, where I went on holidays, or if we talk about other fleets in other parts of the Nordics, they have some of the newest or youngest fleets in Europe, which of course have newer aircraft and more sustainable and more respectful to the environment. But also we need to touch on the sustainability, not only in the sense of being sustainable and environmentally friendly, but also having a sustainable tourism that doesn't impact negatively to local communities, as some of you were commenting. And I think there is a renewed interest in this, and people are also looking for this, looking for no crowded places, avoiding over tourism. As I was mentioning earlier, I think this has been a trend during the pandemic, and I think it's here to stay, and it also bodes well with that of the sustainability.
Yeah, the trend here to stay, Christina, is that right? Oh, she's gone.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
No, I think it's a trend here to say. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, the trend is there, but I have also to follow Javi and Amber from the German market. Our price is for the moment, for this and next year, more important than sustainability. But we are lucky because we are dealing with the coach. This is our main transport, and coach is really sustainable. And
I was going to say that group travel, by its very definition, is more sustainable than FIT, is it not? But that's listen, it's 10:59. Paul, we need to start wrapping up, so I'm just going to thank everyone here. Paul, do you want to say some final words? I think it's been very interesting.
That's been very interesting, and I wanted to just say that we could probably done another hour quite comfortably. And I think what's really important for the audience today is to listen to what's on your mind, what the demand is like, what things are going to move for 2022, because you know the Nordic industries had a very, very quiet couple of years, with the exception of domestic travel, and this year we really believe that in these key markets that are represented today, we'll start to see the recovery. It's probably not going to be back to 2019 levels across the board, but it might be in certain areas. And of course, the one region that we haven't mentioned here today, the Asian market, will probably come at a later stage than all of the markets represented today. But having said that, we still think that in Q3 and 4, we could start seeing resumption of some of the Asian markets back to the Nordic and Baltics from certain markets, not from all, but from certain markets, and that's very important as well. So all in all, I think we've painted a very clear picture from the beginning, from Juan's data to the panelists all saying about how they're feeling things are moving forward towards a recovery in 2022. So a big thanks also to everybody for joining today. And we'll be having another angle on the recovery next month, which we'll tell you a little bit more about in a couple of weeks' time. But thanks to everybody for listening, of course, to our wonderful 5 panelists joining us today and our colleagues at ETOA. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just a final word. Thanks to everyone, and the recording of this will be on our website along with Juan's presentation, if everyone wants to take a look at that. So thanks again to everybody who took part today. So have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Let's look forward to a booming 22. Thanks very much for everybody.
Thank you.